Good evening from Buckingham Palace, where Prince Philip today called time on his decades of public service. The Duke is stepping down from royal duties in the autumn. Not, we're told, because of poor health, but because he'll soon turn 96 and simply feels the time is right. The Prince was back on duty today and he even had time for a joke about standing down, telling one guest that he can't stand up much longer. Our royal editor Chris Shipp has the first of our reports as Prince Philip retires.
At precisely midday today, just as it was scheduled in the diary, the Duke of Edinburgh arrived at St James's Palace with the Queen. The lunch here was going ahead as planned, even though 2 hours earlier the staff of the royal household had been summoned to a meeting to be told that Prince Philip was about to withdraw from public life. When the staff had been told, so then was the rest of the world. It came in the form of a statement from Buckingham Palace. His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh has decided that he will no longer carry out public engagements from the autumn of this year. In taking this decision, the Duke has the full support of the Queen. That announcement means the longest-serving consort to the longest-serving sovereign will be stepping down 2 months after his 96th birthday. So at today's pre-planned engagement, he was happy to make, as he has done so often, a joke or two. This one was about his own advancing years.
I'm sorry to hear you standing down. I can't stand up much.
Next, Prince Philip chatted with the former Speaker of the House of Commons, Baroness Betty Boothroyd, about their hearing aids. And with the painter David Hockney, he pointed at his ears and joked, "We've all got them."
You also got some of these things. We've all got them.
It was only in recent months, the palace said today, that the Duke had made the personal decision to step down this year. And those who'd spent lunch with him said he was in good form.
Very good form. I'm a great fan of his, and I think everybody appreciates what a wonderful consort he is.
It is a glimpse of two very happy people which appeals to us.
It means that his royal duties, first as fiancé to a princess in 1947 and then consort to a queen, will now end 70 years after they started.
From his steadfast support for Her Majesty the Queen to his inspirational Duke of Edinburgh awards and his patronage of hundreds of charities and good causes, his contribution to our United Kingdom, the Commonwealth and the wider world will be of huge benefit to us all for years to come.
And a similarly warm tribute was paid by other politicians, no matter what their views of the monarchy.
We founded the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. Indeed, I did the Duke of Edinburgh's award at school and got a silver medal for it. I wish him well in his retirement.
I think he's always gone about his public service as well with a healthy, at times even a mischievous sense of humour. So I think people today will be appreciative of everything he's done, but want to wish him all the very best for a peaceful and happy retirement.
At Buckingham Palace, the military ceremonies went on today, but the news that there would be an announcement broke overnight and led to speculation in Australia, America and elsewhere about the Duke's health. So there was some relief for those who were outside the palace this morning.
We didn't know what it was all about. It was a surprise, but I guess he's entitled.
Obviously wish him well in his retirement, and we'll miss his japes and his gags.
He's entitled to it, isn't he? You know, how old is he, 95? Yeah, so he is entitled to it.
His is a face which has been part of British life for 7 decades. Always next to and just behind the Queen, he will continue to be seen at times, but his royal diary will now be closed for good.
For Armistice Day, Princess Elizabeth and Lieutenant Mountbatten went to Westminster to pay their own personal tributes to the fallen.
This is where it began. 7 decades of duty and service, usually at the side or just behind the woman who is about to become queen.
Together, the princess and her future husband planted their crosses in the Empire Field of Remembrance.
The young naval officer Philip Mountbatten already knew about service, of course. He'd served in the war and could have risen to the top in the Royal Navy, but that ambition had to be set aside when he married.
Naturally disappointing, because I'd just been promoted to commander. And in fact, the most interesting part of a naval career was just starting. being married to the Queen, it seems to me that my first duty was to serve her in the best way I could.
And that would mean a very different life, often in a spotlight he would not otherwise have sought. This was the newlyweds' coronation tour of Jamaica, one of 637 overseas trips he's now made as Duke of Edinburgh.
This indeed was an historic occasion.
There have been countless duties at the Queen's side, meeting the leaders of the day, and some 22,000 solo engagements, including this visit to British troops based in Germany, where he took command of a tank. Alongside the state duties, almost 800 charities and other organisations have enjoyed his patronage.
The expedition was never intended as an endurance test, but it becomes pretty near to one during the descent.
In 1956, he gave his name to a scheme that would encourage generations of young people to enjoy and test themselves in the outdoors.
The main purpose of the scheme is to help boys to find activities which will give them pleasure and satisfaction, perhaps for the rest of their lives.
The environment and the natural world have been another long-standing passion. For 15 years, he was the high-profile president of the World Wildlife Fund, often championing endangered species.
They've got nostrils on the end there. If people in this generation have any feelings whatever for their descendants, they ought to be a great deal more active in the conservation of nature and the conservation of resources generally.
For 70 years, only the worst of ill health has kept him away from duty. During the Jubilee celebrations, he famously stood for hours in the rain, bringing on a bout of illness. His causes will see less of him now. Others will take his place alongside the Queen. After 7 decades, it's time to pass the baton on. Paul Davis, ITV.
To the country, she has been a constant for 7 decades. As her consort, he is her constant, at her side for most of her life, in a partnership of love, respect and duty.
I think they're an extraordinary double act. The Queen is quite conservative with a small c. She's quite reluctant to change. She does her duty. The Duke of Edinburgh is much more progressive. He is in a hurry, he's impatient. And so between them, they cover the waterfront. They've been an extraordinary couple, and we have been so blessed to have them.
It was in 1950s Britain that he pledged his public commitment at the coronation.
I, Philip, will become your liege man of life and limb, and of earthly worship.
As he kissed his wife, he touched the crown, an acknowledgement of his readiness to bear its burden with her, and so he has with a life of public service.
It was very unusual for a young, ambitious man to give up his career in the 1950s, and he was embarking, I'm sure, on a very successful career in the Navy. So in a way, he was a pioneer in that as well, to make the decision to give up his career and support his wife, the Queen, for the rest of their life, I think was a really big decision.
That decision has led to decades of support and wise counsel, which have endured through dark days, through days of duty where he's offered a guiding hand, or indeed more practical support ferrying the guests about, to moments of celebration and ceremony, a commitment acknowledged by the woman he has supported throughout.
But he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years, and I and his whole family, and this and many other countries, owe him a debt greater than he would ever claim, or we shall ever know.
So now a new era begins, with the younger royals at the Queen's side. The Duke may not be so obvious in public in the future, but in private, the support he offers as consort will remain as constant as ever. Emma Murphy.
The grounds of a stately home in Derbyshire, people are gathering to spend a weekend pursuing a sport they all love. And yet this is a sport which would not even exist without the man who invented it, wrote the rules, and remains a passionate competitor to this very day. Carriage driving has been the Duke of Edinburgh's pastime, his hobby for over 40 years. He pioneered its development and represented his country, and made plenty of friends along the way. George is an old teammate from the British squad, now 83 himself, but full of fond memories of his rival and friend.
So I'm just
a scrap dealer from Cumbria, and he's always treated me with the greatest of respect. And I'd like to call him a friend. I don't know if he called me his friend, but we always have a conversation, a bit of catch up on things, but he's been a wonderful man, a man's man.
The National Horse Driving Trials at Catton Park are an event that wouldn't be complete without the Duke, and he'll be here as a spectator. Organisers say it'll be impossible to stop him getting involved.
He's been a very keen driver, he's been a very successful driver, he's represented his country at this sport, and now that he's no longer actively driving, he's keen to help, to be a steward, to be a timekeeper and such like, all of which things that other people who participate in the sport follow very much the same line. So he in that sense, he's one of us.
Retiring from public life doesn't mean he'll stop doing the things he loves. He'll be driving his own carriage at an event at Windsor Castle next week, and if he enjoys home advantage there, well, nobody will mind too much. Damon Green.